Father's Day. That magical holiday where you realize your family's love is apparently measured in receipts. So, my darling daughter, Kara, decides to bless me with a lottery ticket. $2 worth of generosity. She slapped it onto the dining table like she was presenting me with the crown jewels. And, with a smirk only Satan could envy, she chirped, "Dad, if you win, remember half is mine." Oh yes, because nothing screams family love quite like conditional generosity. I smiled, the kind of smile people give when they're trying not to flip the table, and managed, "Very thoughtful, sweetheart." Which, translated, means, "I'm planning your disinheritance in my head as we speak." But of course, Kara wasn't finished humiliating me. Oh no, she had an encore. She whipped out this glossy ribbon-wrapped box that looked like it had been stolen from Harrods. Out comes a pair of cruise tickets worth $13,000. Not for me, mind you. No, those were for her father-in-law, Eric. Apparently, Eric deserves the best for everything he's done for our family. Yes, Eric. The man who's basically my financial understudy. He buys them a house, pays the grandson's private school fees, and cherry on top, funds their bloody country club membership. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there holding a $2 scratch-off like a mug. Eric, of course, lapped it up, held the tickets like they were sacred scrolls, all smug and moisturized. The man has hands that clearly haven't touched a spanner in their life. He actually said with a straight face, "Now this is what I call a proper gift." His eyes flicked to me across the table as if to say, "You raised her well, in knowing how to climb the social ladder." Family dinner turned into the Hunger Games of passive aggression. My sister suddenly found her mashed potatoes fascinating. My nephew acted like he'd never seen his fingernails before. Even Jake, my grandson who thinks Snapchat is a career, looked up from his phone. That's how awkward it was. Kara then, in her best princess voice, decided to spell it out. Some people show love through grand gestures. Others, she gestured vaguely at my lottery ticket. Well, and I just sat there, gripping that ticket like it might disintegrate under the weight of my dignity. "Oh, it's just a little joke, Dad," she said. Of course it is. The kind of joke where the punchline is me. Then came Eric, the human checkbook, with his parting shot. Perhaps next year Stephen will surprise us with something more substantial. Yes, perhaps next year I'll surprise you with arsenic. After dinner, they all swanned off, leaving me with my present. A crumpled piece of paper worth less than the petrol it took them to get here. I stayed at the table, staring at it like it might burst into flames and save me the trouble. Funny thing is, that $2 ticket reminded me of when Kara was little. I used to give her $2 for ice cream, and her face would light up like Christmas. Back then, I was the hero. Now, apparently, I'm the comedy act. The house was quiet again. The kind of quiet that feels heavier after your families just emptied their souls of disappointment on you. Next morning, coffee in hand, I did my usual ritual of checking my bank statement. Because, apparently, some people do yoga. I do financial anxiety. Bills, groceries, boring but predictable. And then a charge. Premium travel services. 13 grand. And here's the kicker. The date lined up perfectly with Kara's little cruise surprise. That's when it hit me. She hadn't even bought Eric's grand gift with her own money. She used mine. The lottery ticket wasn't just an insult. It was a bloody distraction. I'd completely forgotten about that ridiculous lottery ticket until the universe decided to rub salt in the wound. There I was, staring at my bank statement like it had just personally insulted me. When I saw the charge, premium travel services, £13,000. And of course, my first thought was, well, that's odd. I don't remember buying myself a midlife crisis at sea. So I phoned Kara. My hands were shaking, partly with rage, partly with the sheer absurdity of it all. She answered with that oh-so-busy voice she saves for me, as if being my daughter is an administrative task she'd rather delegate. "Hello, Dad." I cut straight to the point. "Kara, I'm looking at my bank statement. There's a charge for over £13,000. And she laughed. Laughed. Like I'd asked if she'd borrowed a fiver, not emptied my life savings for a floating buffet. Oh, that. Yeah, I bought Dad Eric his cruise. He deserves something nice for once. Ah, yes. Because the man with the country club membership and the moisturized hands really needed a holiday. I said it plainly. You took 13,000 pounds from my account without asking. Her reply? I didn't take anything, Dad. I used family money for a family gift. Family money. Isn't that adorable? Apparently, my wallet is now a communal resource, like the public library. Except in this library, when I take something out, I get scolded for being ungrateful. I told her it was theft. She actually had the gall to snap back. It's not stealing when it's family money. Brilliant. Shall we test that theory at Tesco? Don't worry, it's family money. We're all technically related if you go back far enough. She then launched into a full sermon about how Eric has always been there for them financially, helping with the house, Jake's private school, the country club. And this was simply returning the favor. Meanwhile, the only favor I ever got from Eric was his smug face across my dinner table, eating my roast potatoes while calling me stingy. But the part that truly cracked whatever was left of my soul was this. You did what fathers are supposed to do, Dad. Eric went above and beyond. Translation. Thanks for the free degree, Dad. But Eric bought us cocktails in Capri, so he wins. The line went dead. Not my phone. My faith in humanity. I sat there, staring at the dial tone, hearing my own breathing like I just buried someone. And, in a way, I had. My daughter. I looked over at that crumpled 2-pound lottery ticket. Her gift. The cherry on top. The insult disguised as generosity. Even that pathetic scrap had been bought with my money. So technically, I'd gifted myself rejection. Lovely. I crushed it in my fist, marched to the bin, and threw it in with yesterday's coffee grounds, right where it belonged. The house suddenly felt claustrophobic, like the walls were whispering. Mate, she played you. So I grabbed my jacket and left. I wandered the streets, trying not to look like a man on the verge of disowning his only child. Neighbors waved cheerfully. Beautiful morning, Stephen. Yes, of course. A beautiful morning to discover your daughter values her father-in-law more than you. Stunning weather for betrayal. I walked past Tom Henderson teaching his grandson to throw a baseball. The laughter echoed. Once upon a time, that had been Kara. Little girl gripping a ball with determination, beaming when she finally got it right. Back then, I was the hero. Now, I'm the idiot funding Eric's cruise wardrobe. My phone buzzed. A text from Kara. My heart actually jumped, foolishly. Maybe she'd apologized. Maybe she'd realized how low she'd sunk. The message? Dad, I talked to Eric about the money situation. He thinks you're overreacting. It's not like you needed it for anything important. We'll pay you back when we can. Maybe for Christmas. K.I.S. Because 13,000 pounds is basically loose change in the sofa cushions. Pay me back for Christmas, as if it's a secret Santa present. Here you go, Dad, here's the cash we stole, and a box of Ferrero Rocher. Before I could respond, my sister Margaret rang. She'd already heard from Kara, of course. Stephen, are you okay? Kara said you were upset about some money thing. Some money thing. Like I tripped over a tenner. I told her the truth flat out. She stole 13,000 pounds from me to buy her father-in-law a cruise. She gave me a 2-pound lottery ticket and claimed half the winnings. There was silence. Then Margaret finally said, she what? I laughed bitterly. She said it wasn't stealing because it was family money. Apparently Eric deserves it because he's been generous, unlike me. Margaret's voice softened. Stephen, I'm so sorry. I had no idea she'd become so cruel, I said. The word is cruel. And that was that. Margaret wanted to help, but there was nothing anyone could do. My daughter had made her choice, and it wasn't me. I walked home slower than before, not because I was tired, but because the truth weighed heavier than any physical load. My daughter valued a man with cruise tickets over the man who gave her everything. And that's the kind of joke you don't laugh at, unless you've gone mad enough to. The house felt different when I came back. Not because anything had changed, mind you, the furniture was still ancient, the wallpaper still peeling, but because now I was seeing it through my daughter's eyes, which meant everything looked smaller, shabbier, and just shy of being listed as a crime scene. The bin in my kitchen still held that crumpled lottery ticket. The so-called gift. A 2-pound insult disguised as humor. I stared at it for a long while, remembering her laugh as she tossed it at me. That laugh that said, "Here, Dad, let me remind you your life has the same street value as a scratch card." Tomorrow, I promised myself, I'd ring the bank and cut her access off. A step I should have taken years ago, back when I still believed emergency contact meant she'd use it to save my life, not bankroll her father-in-law's luxury suntan. But tonight I sat in my quiet house and mourned. Not the 13,000 pounds, although trust me I noticed, but the daughter I'd apparently misplaced somewhere between bedtime stories and country club memberships. The next morning, though, came with that brutal kind of clarity only a sleepless night and too much instant coffee can provide. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the bank's phone number like it was the hotline to salvation. My hands were steady for the first time in 24 hours. A miracle. First National Bank, customer service. This is Rebecca. How can I help you? I need to revoke authorized access to my account. Someone's been making unauthorized purchases. Translation. My daughter's been treating me like her personal ATM. Rebecca was professional, calm, probably wondering how I'd survived this long, being that naive. Within 15 minutes, Cara was locked out, new security measures were in place, and for the first time in years, I felt something approaching relief. Is there anything else I can help you with today, Mr. Woods? No, that covers it. Thank you. Translation. Thanks for helping me grow a backbone at 63. Better late than never. I hung up and looked around my kitchen again. It didn't look shabby anymore. It looked honest, modest, mine. Funny how changing your bank settings can suddenly turn poverty into character. But then my eyes landed on the bin, on the ticket. That 2-pound joke, bought with my own stolen money, lobbed at me like scraps for the dog. The irony was so sharp it almost made me laugh. She'd stolen from me to buy me a gift, then demanded half of the potential winnings. Shakespeare couldn't write comedy this tragic. I fished it out, smoothed the wrinkles, and glared at the numbers like they'd personally offended me. Memorized them, as if they represented everything wrong between us. Then promptly crushed it again and launched it back into the bin with Olympic-level spite. The morning stretched ahead, quiet and empty. Too quiet. I grabbed my jacket and walked out, because staying in that house felt like being suffocated by betrayal and coffee grounds. The streets were buzzing with ordinary life, lawnmowers, kids shouting, neighbors waving. All the background noise of people living uncomplicated lives that didn't involve their children draining their bank accounts. Mrs. Patterson was in her garden again, coaxing life out of roses with more care than Cara ever gave me. She smiled, warm as ever. Morning, Stephen. You're out early today. Couldn't sleep, I muttered. Which was true, though couldn't stop replaying my daughter's betrayal on a mental loop was slightly more accurate. She nodded. Sometimes the best thinking happens when your feet are moving. Yeah, maybe. My feet were moving, but all my thoughts were just insults strung together in Cara's direction. I passed Tom Henderson washing his car with his grandson. The kid was making more puddles than progress, but Tom didn't care. He was laughing, pure, joyful. And of course, that reminded me of Cara once, when my approval was enough, when her happiness didn't come with a 13,000-pound price tag. Further down, Mr. Chun was arranging fruit in his shop window, each apple placed like it was a crown jewel. 30 years of honest graft. No cruises, no country clubs. Just quiet dignity. Imagine that. My phone buzzed. And for a foolish second, hope lifted. Maybe Cara had realized. Maybe she'd apologized. Nope. Dad, I talked to Eric about the money situation. He thinks you're overreacting. It's not like you needed it for anything important. We'll pay you back when we can. Maybe for Christmas. K. Ah yes, because 13,000 pounds is basically monopoly money. Don't worry, Dad. We'll repay you like it's a stocking stuffer. Maybe throw in some socks while we're at it. I stopped, stared at the message until the words blurred, then deleted it. No reply. What was there left to say? The streets of my neighborhood wrapped around me, full of people who valued simple things. Honest work, mutual respect, relationships that didn't come with terms and conditions. Meanwhile, my bin still held that lottery ticket, worthless, forgotten, and poetic in its own pathetic way. 3 days passed. 3 days of coffee, cheap meals, and something close to peace. Then, just when the silence was starting to feel bearable, the phone rang, cutting through the calm like an executioner's drum roll. "Dad, what the hell did you do to my card?" "Ah, yes. Good morning to you too, sunshine." Kara's voice detonated down the receiver before I'd even managed a polite hello. Apparently, Nordstrom had the audacity to decline her card, and to hear her tell it, this was a national tragedy. Forget world hunger, my daughter couldn't buy a handbag. I set my spatula down, calmly, steadily, like a surgeon about to announce, "Yes, I'm afraid we've removed the tumor, but it grew legs and opened a credit line in your name." "I removed your access," I said flatly, "after you stole 13 grand from my account." "I didn't steal anything," she screeched, voice climbing like a smoke alarm battery no one can quite reach. "That money was for family, for someone who actually contributes." Oh, marvelous. Apparently, raising her, paying her tuition, and working 60-hour weeks was just cosplay. Nice to know my role as father came with the same recognition as an unpaid intern. Through the phone, I could hear the rustle of shopping bags and the soothing background hum of retail despair. She was literally phoning me from a mall car park mid-tantrum, holding an $800 handbag that now had rejection trauma. "Dad, $800, she spat. The sales associate ran my card 3 times before telling me, in front of everyone, that it was declined. Other customers were staring. I looked like some kind of common person. A common person. The horror. Imagine being lumped in with the ghastly peasants who can't buy handbags worth more than a month's rent. "I'm sorry you were embarrassed," I said, with all the sincerity of an airline's lost luggage department. "But that doesn't change what you did." "What I did," she laughed, though there was less humor in it than in a dentist's waiting room, "was show Eric respect. Something you've never learned. Eric. My son-in-law. My financial hemorrhage with legs. Apparently, buying him a luxury gift with stolen money was respect. Whereas me saving for 40 years was, what, hoarding? Scrooge cosplay? You're going to regret this," she hissed, voice suddenly colder than a tax inspector's handshake. "You think you can humiliate me publicly and just walk away? There will be consequences. I have friends." Ah, yes, the old I have friend routine. Translation. A couple of yoga mums and an insurance broker who once lent them a barbecue. Terrifying. The line went dead with a kind of satisfying click you only get when someone hangs up dramatically. My eggs, however, were less satisfying, stone cold. Reheated, they tasted like failure and bitterness. A lot like family dinners, now that I think about it. That evening, I attempted television therapy. Wolves. Pastry chefs. Politicians droning about budgets. Spoiler, none of it helped. My tablet sat on the coffee table, glaring at me like an unopened bill. Eventually, I caved and checked Facebook. And there it was. Kara's Oscar-worthy sob story, complete with red-rimmed eyes and the tragic expression of someone who'd had to downgrade from designer to department store. "Having to write this breaks my heart," she typed. Funny. Her heart seemed intact enough at Nordstrom. "But my father has cut me off from what has always been our family money." Oh yes, family money. Because, apparently, I was running some kind of communal slush fund. Silly me, thinking my wages were mine. Her post had 47 likes and 23 comments. All from people who clearly failed basic arithmetic, but excelled in self-righteousness. OMG Kara, so sorry. Older people can be paranoid. Another, family money belongs to the whole family. Of course it does. Why stop at handbags? Shall we all chip in for Eric's sports car? Maybe a villa in Spain? I'll just live on beans and goodwill. I shut the tablet, sat in the dark, and listened to my house creak around me. Somewhere in the kitchen bin, that crumpled lottery ticket was still mocking me. $2 bloody had caused this circus. The next night, I was still sulking in my chair, flicking channels like a man avoiding his own funeral. Click. Wolves. Click. 90s sitcom. Click. Politics. Click. The lottery draw. Good evening, Ohio. The announcer boomed with the forced cheer of a man 1 smile away from a nervous breakdown. Tonight's Powerball jackpot, 12 million. I almost changed it. But no. Let's embrace the absurdity. Here I was being painted as Ebenezer Scrooge for protecting 13 grand, while somewhere out there, some random sod was about to be richer than God. And the winning numbers are 7, 14, 23, 35, 42, and the Powerball is 18. My hand froze on the remote. Those numbers. Oh, they weren't just familiar, they were tattooed on the inside of my skull. I grabbed a pen and scribbled them on an envelope like some crazed conspiracy theorist. 7, 14, 23, 35, 42, Powerball 18. My heart was thumping like a dodgy boiler. I knew those numbers. Of course I did. I'd stared at them long enough to memorize them in a fit of rage. The bloody lottery ticket. The one I'd launched into the bin like yesterday's Chinese takeaway. I staggered to the kitchen, legs about as reliable as a 3-legged stool, and eyed the bin. It sat there smug, filled with banana skins, empty tins, and the general misery of middle-aged bachelorhood. I plunged my hand in like a man possessed, rooting around like Gollum after the one ring. And there it was, stuck to a yogurt pot, stained with coffee, wrinkled beyond dignity, but still readable. The $2 joke. The Father's Day insult. The scraps to a dog gesture for my darling daughter. Only now it was worth a cool $120 million. I rinsed it under the tap, because apparently I'm the sort of man who launders money literally. Numbers clear as day, 7, 14, 23, 35, 42, 18. Perfect match. I called the lottery hotline, hands trembling like I'd downed 10 espressos. The automated voice confirmed it. Yes, I had won. Yes, $120 million. No, this wasn't a prank call from the universe. I sat in my kitchen chair, staring at my humble kingdom of peeling lino and outdated appliances. It all suddenly looked like a film set waiting to be bulldozed. Kara's voice echoed in my head. If you win, half is mine. Yes. The generosity of theft. Buy your father a gift with his own stolen money, then demand half the imaginary winnings. A modern fairy tale. I barely slept, checked the ticket 100 times, considered the possibility I'd hallucinated the whole thing. But by morning, there it was, damp, wrinkled, coffee-stained, and worth more than I'd earned in 4 decades of actual work. The Ohio Lottery Commission office was all glass, steel, and security. Very serious business. I clutched my plastic sleeve treasure like it was radioactive. A woman called Janet Chun, all smiles and professional efficiency, scanned the ticket. This is indeed a winning ticket, Mr. Woods. I gripped my chair, certain I'd float off like some demented helium balloon. Then she ruined it with bureaucracy. 48 hours of verification. Legal documents. Taxes. Publicity procedures. My future measured out in paperwork. But none of it mattered. I was worth $120 million. Driving home was surreal. Familiar streets looked suddenly alien. Mrs. Patterson with her roses, the corner shop, the primary school where Kara once learned to read. It was all still there, but I'd slipped into some parallel universe. One where I was no longer poor, just paranoid. I'd barely been home an hour before Kara screeched into my driveway like she was auditioning for Fast and Furious, the entitled edition. She burst through the front door without knocking, face flushed with greed. Sorry, excitement. Dad, I heard about the lottery. Someone at the office saw your name on the winner's list. I stayed seated at the kitchen table, lottery paperwork spread before me like evidence in a murder trial. Hello, Kara. Don't hello me, she snapped, practically vibrating. Do you realize what this means? We're millionaires. Remember what I said? Half is mine. That was her opening line. Not congratulations. Not I'm happy for you. Straight to hand over half. Shakespeare couldn't write a tragedy this on the nose. That was a gift, I said, voice calm but blood pressure anything but. You can't take back a gift. Her face hardened, excitement curdling into venom. We had an agreement. Everyone at dinner heard me say it. Witnesses, Dad. Legal witnesses. Oh yes, because a drunken family dinner counts as a binding contract now. Shall I also sue her for the time she promised at age 9 she'd always be daddy's girl? You threw that ticket at me like garbage, I said. You bought it with money you stole. It was never about sharing. Stole, she shrieked. I used family money for a family purpose. And now you're trying to cheat me out of what's rightfully mine. And there it was. The final transformation. My daughter, the little girl who once begged for bedtime stories, now stood before me as a full-grown stranger, one whose first thought upon hearing I'd won the lottery was how much of it she could take. The ticket was a gift, I repeated, because apparently I was auditioning for the role of broken record. Whatever you said, whatever you meant, it became mine the moment you gave it to me. Her eyes narrowed to slits. I'll sue you. Of course she will. Because nothing says Happy Father's Day quite like being dragged through court by your only child over a bin-soaked lottery ticket. She slammed her hand on my table so hard the lottery papers did a little hop, like they were trying to escape the drama themselves. I'll prove that ticket belongs to me, Kara snapped. I'll take you to court and make sure everyone knows what kind of man you really are. And what kind is that, darling? The kind that forgets bin day? The kind that eats soup straight out of the saucepan? Or apparently, the kind who steals from his own offspring. Lovely resume I'm building here. What kind of man am I, Kara? I asked, because why not twist the knife into myself while we're at it? She paused, chest heaving, eyes wide, and for half a second, I thought she might actually see me. Recognition. Maybe even shame. But no. It was gone quicker than my appetite at Christmas dinner with her in-laws. You're the kind who steals from his own daughter, she spat. Ah yes. There it is. The title of my upcoming memoir. The Dad Who Nicked a Scratch Card. Available in all good bookstores, assuming I survived the press storm. She stormed out with enough drama to qualify for a BAFTA, her parting shot hanging in the air like the world's most unwanted air freshener. Her engine roared, and just like that, I was alone again. Me, a table covered in official lottery paperwork, and one very tired soul. $120 million richer, and yet about as emotionally energized as a damp sponge. I woke to the sound of my phone buzzing itself into a seizure on the nightstand. 15 missed calls, 12 texts, and what felt like an entire continent of social media notifications. The first Facebook post appeared at 6:47 a.m. because, of course, my daughter's public breakdown had to be everyone's morning coffee companion. Urgent. My father has stolen my lottery ticket. Oh, brilliant. Now I'm a headline. And apparently not just any headline, but the face of elder abuse in reverse. Which, fun fact, is not a real thing. Unless you're my daughter. In which case it's very real, very public, and very much pinned to the top of her feed. She even used that picture of me from last Christmas, where I look like a man who's just been told the turkey is vegan. And, naturally, the comments came flooding in. This is disgusting. Lawyers need to get involved. Team Kara. Team Kara. Like she's just launched a bloody skincare brand. But she wasn't done. Oh no. Kara's Instagram had content. A whole tear-streaked, mascara-running monologue from the safety of her car. I don't usually air family business like this. Translation. She does constantly. My father stole my ticket. Literally stole it. He's keeping all $120 million for himself. Cue the sobbing. Cue the moral outrage. Cue me questioning every decision I've ever made, starting with not investing in a burner phone. And then Eric, dear son-in-law, human wallpaper, LinkedIn enthusiast, joined the crusade. His posts were so professional they sounded like a corporate press release. Witnessing financial elder abuse is devastating. Oh please. The man works in investments. He's probably swindled pensioners in his lunch break. But sure, let's paint me as the villain here. By noon, the story had gone properly viral. Local Facebook mums were discussing that greedy bloke on Maple Street. The neighborhood app, where people usually argue about bin collections and suspicious cats, was suddenly ablaze with debates about my moral compass. Spoiler, it doesn't exist apparently. I made the rookie mistake of reading the comments. I know this family, one woman wrote. The daughter's always been so generous and kind. Right. The same kind daughter who emptied my bank account like it was an all-you-can-eat buffet. By the time I shut my laptop, I was fairly sure I'd been condemned to hell, if not by God, then certainly by my neighbors. In fact, 3 of them were already standing by my mailbox, gossiping like extras in a low-budget soap opera. They scattered the second I appeared at the window, which honestly made me feel like Voldemort popping into the local Tesco. And then, because apparently humiliation is now scheduled hourly, a text pinged in from an unknown number. Channel 6 wants to interview you about the lottery controversy. Can you call us? Oh sure, let me just put on my best alleged thief jumper. Columbus Dispatch seeking comment on family lottery dispute. Lovely. Can't wait to read myself slandered over cornflakes. Legal representation available for lottery ticket disputes. Free consultation. Free consultation. How generous. Because nothing screams justice like a discount lawyer. I turned off my phone, sat in my quiet kitchen, and stared at the paperwork. On paper, I was worth $120 million. In reality, couldn't buy myself a shred of peace. The morning light hit the table, bouncing off the pages of Kara's social media crusade. Evidence in the trial of the century, starring me as the villain. And then, because fate has a sense of humor, my landline rang. Mr. Woods, this is William Johnson, Eric's father. Oh joy. The father of my son-in-law. A man with the charm of an audit report. His voice was calm, professional, dripping with authority. Exactly the kind of bloke you want calling when your life's already circling the drain. I believe we need to talk. Brilliant. Just what every man wants to hear at 8 o'clock in the morning, before coffee and dignity. I'm not sure what there is to discuss, Mr. Johnson, I said, gripping the receiver like it might bite me back. There's quite a lot, actually. A pause. Could we meet this morning? Say Murphy's Diner on 5th Street in an hour. Murphy's. The place with cracked vinyl booths, lethal coffee, and pancakes you could use as roof tiles. Also the sort of establishment Eric wouldn't be caught dead in, which made it immediately appealing. What's this about? I asked, already dreading the answer. The lottery ticket, William said simply, and what I witnessed on Father's Day. My heart stopped doing its job and started tap dancing. You were there. I was indeed. 1 hour, Mr. Woods. Click. Line dead. My sanity also dead. I nearly didn't go. But curiosity or stupidity, whichever wins more often, got the better of me. When I arrived, William stood out like a sore thumb in a navy suit, so sharp it probably had its own bodyguard. In Murphy's Diner, he was essentially a peacock in a chicken coop. Mr. Woods, he said warmly, shaking my hand. His was perfectly moisturized. Mine smelled faintly of bin juice from my earlier emotional breakdown. Excellent start. We slid into a booth by the window. Dolores, the waitress who's been caffeinating the city since the 80s, wordlessly dumped 2 coffees on the table. She knows everyone's business, and probably already had an opinion on mine. I witnessed the entire gift exchange, William said, straight to business. Every word, every gesture. Your daughter handed you that lottery ticket and explicitly called it your Father's Day gift. I stared at him, waiting for the punchline. She's claiming we had an agreement, I managed, about splitting any winnings. His jaw tightened. That's simply not what happened. I watched her throw that ticket at you like it was a coaster. No negotiation. No contract. A gift pure and simple. A gift. Imagine that. The kind that comes with a free side of public crucifixion. He pulled out his phone and scrolled with the efficiency of someone who'd built an empire from spreadsheets and suffering. What my son and daughter-in-law are doing is unconscionable. They're destroying your reputation with lies. You're Eric's father, I said carefully. Why go against your own son? William laughed, the bitter, middle-aged kind that says, I've raised a prat and it's too late to return him for store credit. Because I raised him to have integrity, he said. And he's forgotten everything I taught him. And with that, he began typing a Facebook post. Not a text, not a discreet email. A Facebook post. Because clearly, if civilization collapses, it'll be on Zuckerberg's timeline first. I leaned over as he typed, reading the masterpiece aloud in my head. As a witness to the Father's Day gathering, I observed Kara present the ticket as a gift. There was no agreement to share winnings. Mr. Woods is the rightful owner. This campaign against him is false, and I will not remain silent while a good man's reputation is destroyed by my own family. Basically, the Facebook equivalent of slapping his son and daughter-in-law across the face with a white glove. "You don't have to do this," I muttered, though secretly hoping he would. "Yes, I do," he said. Then, click. Posted. His phone immediately exploded with notifications. William Johnson doesn't lie, apparently. In the business world, his word was gospel. Within minutes, comments were rolling in. If William says it, it's true. This changes everything. And just like that, my public execution had been temporarily postponed. We shook hands outside. His was still unnervingly moisturized. He slipped into his sleek, black Mercedes. I climbed into my battered sedan, feeling something foreign, something dangerous. Hope. 2 weeks later, it happened. The call. "Mr. Woods, this is Janet Chun from the Ohio Lottery Commission. Your verification process is complete. We'd like to invite you to our formal check presentation ceremony tomorrow morning." "A ceremony?" I repeated, as though I'd just been told I'd won Best Supporting Actor in a family meltdown. "Yes. You can choose private or public. But given the recent interest in your case, we recommend public." Yes, recent interest, also known as my daughter's smear campaign and half of Columbus gossiping about me over school runs and barbecues. "Yes," I said. "Public. If I was going down, it might as well be in high definition." "Excellent," Janet said. 10 a.m. at our headquarters. The media will be present, so please dress appropriately. And congratulations, Mr. Woods. This is going to change your life." "Change my life?" "Darling, my life's already changed. I've been crucified on Facebook, betrayed by my offspring, and vindicated by a man in a navy suit who treats moisturizer like religion. But sure, let's call it a change." That evening, I laid out my best clothes. Best being relative. A navy suit I'd bought for my wife's funeral 8 years ago. Yes, nothing says fresh start like recycled morning attire. A white shirt still with the crisp edges of professional pressing, because God forbid I iron anything myself. And a tie Kara had given me for Christmas 5 years ago, back when she still considered me human. The lottery headquarters buzzed like an anthill someone had kicked over. Television crews fiddled with lights, as if they were about to shoot the next Marvel film. Photographers tested their angles like they were auditioning to be Spielberg. And officials marched around with clipboards. Faces so serious you'd think they were preparing for a moon landing. I felt like an actor who'd wandered into the wrong movie set. Except instead of James Bond, they got me. "Mr. Woods." Janet Chun appeared with a smile so polished it probably came with a dental sponsorship. "Ready to become a millionaire?" "Oh, darling, I've been ready since birth." The ceremony was absurdly formal. A backdrop plastered with Ohio Lottery logos. An oversized check, so large it required 2 men to hold. Presumably the same ones who'd failed gym class but passed clipboard school. Camera flashes went off like I was about to confess to Watergate. When Janet announced me as the winner of the $120 million jackpot, the applause was thunderous. My ears rang. My brain asked, "Are we sure this isn't a prank show?" I cleared my throat and said, with all the dignity of a man desperately clinging to relevance, "This is certainly unexpected. I plan to use this blessing responsibly, to help others, to pursue dreams I'd put aside, and to live with dignity." Translation: I'm rich now, but please don't hate me. Reporters swarmed. "How does it feel to win? What are your plans? Will you quit working?" I answered politely, trying not to mention that my only real plan was to buy silence in bulk. Gratitude, responsibility, the usual bingo card of answers people expect from overnight millionaires. Then, of course, they arrived. Kara and Eric barged through the crowd like gatecrashers at a wedding they weren't invited to, which, ironically, is how they treat life. Kara was flushed desperate, and dressed like she was about to collect an award for world's most expensive midlife crisis. Stop, she screeched, slicing through the professional atmosphere like a chainsaw at a tea party. That's my ticket. We had an agreement. Security moved instantly, but naturally, she doubled down. Everyone here needs to know. That ticket was mine. He's stealing from his own daughter. Oh yes. Nothing says stable family unit like airing your fraudulent grievances live on state television. The camera spun towards her faster than vultures spotting roadkill. News gold. Ma'am, you need to step back, a guard said in the polite but firm tone usually reserved for drunk uncles at weddings. I looked at Kara, calm for the first time in months. Kara, please don't do this here. Which of course meant, please do this here, so the whole world can see your circus act for free. But she was off, arms flailing, Eric trying to drag her back, both of them looking like rejects from a reality TV audition. A reporter shoved a mic under my nose. Mr. Woods, can you comment on this family dispute? Oh, with pleasure. The ticket was a Father's Day gift for my daughter, I said clearly. Mr. William Johnson has already confirmed this. That's all there is to it. Translation. Sit down, Kara. Daddy's busy collecting his giant check. Another reporter. What do you plan to do with the money? I thought about Kara shrieking in the background, about months of manipulation and betrayal, about years of being her emotional punching bag. I plan to help others who deserve it, I said smoothly. I want to start a business I've dreamed about for years, and I intend to live with the kind of integrity that makes a person worthy of good fortune. Subtext, and none of you parasites are invited. The ceremony ended in a flurry of handshakes, signatures, and the ceremonial photo op, Kara and Eric. They were outside mid-domestic beside their BMW, voices raised, arms flapping, the car bearing witness to the collapse of their relationship. I carried my check to my battered sedan like a man smugly walking out of Aldi with champagne. In the rear-view mirror, I caught them still bickering, their marriage crumbling faster than their credit score. For the first time in months, I smiled. A proper, teeth-showing smile. The next morning, coffee in hand, I sat at the kitchen table, newspaper headline blaring my name in black and white. Local man wins $120 million. Imagine that I'd finally made the front page, and not because my daughter was screaming about me on Facebook. Then I heard it. A car door slam. Through the window, Kara creeping up the driveway. Not the fire-breathing dragon from yesterday. No, today she was deflated. Shoulders slumped. Designer clothes wrinkled like she'd been sleeping in a skip, and an expression that screamed pity me. 3 soft knocks. Not her usual storm the castle entrance. Almost apologetic. I opened the door. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her voice a whisper. Dad, could we talk, please? And here's where my paternal instincts staged a comeback. Damn them. Come in, I said, against all better judgment. She perched on the edge of the couch like a bird that didn't know whether to sing or fly into the window. I'm so sorry about yesterday, she began, tears streaming with Academy Award-worthy precision. I was just overwhelmed, scared. Eric's been pressuring me. Our finances are worse than I've told anyone. Ah, there it was. Not an apology. A pitch. She twisted her hands. We're about to lose the house. The mortgage, the credit cards, Eric's business. It's all collapsing. We owe nearly $400,000. The bank's starting foreclosure. I didn't know who else to turn to. Cue tragic violin music. Apparently, Eric's investment firm was bleeding money. The country club fees. The private school tuition. The designer everything. Their empire of pretense was crumbling. And guess who they expected to swoop in with a cape? I listened. And, oh, how I listened. Because I finally understood. This wasn't my daughter. This was my daughter's performance. And she thought I'd still buy a ticket. She started with the classics. Same trick she'd used as a teenager when she wanted a new phone or a lift to a party. The watery eyes, the helpless act, the daddy. You've always been my hero routine. You've always been there for me before, she whispered, reaching across to touch my hand, as though skin contact might hypnotize me into direct debiting my soul. I just need help one more time. Just enough to save our house and get back on our feet. How much? I asked, already regretting the question. $2 million, she said quickly, like she'd rehearsed it in front of a mirror. It sounds like a lot, but it's nothing compared to what you won. You'd still have over 100 million left. Ah yes, the casual 2 million quid request. Like asking for a pint of milk. 2 million, or in my old world, 40 years of working myself into an early grave. But sure, darling, treat it like bus fare. Kara, I said gently, which in dad speak means strap in for the truth. I've heard these promises before. Her brow creased, as though no one had ever dared suggest she'd recycled her excuses. You stole 13,000 from my account without asking. You humiliated me on social media. You tried to nick my lottery ticket by force. And now you'd like me to reward you with 2 million. Her face trembled. More tears. The deluxe model now, faster flow, added desperation. I was wrong before, she sniffled. But this is different. We're about to lose everything. The house, our life, Jake's education. You need to learn to solve your own problems, I said, calm as a monk, though internally adding, and preferably without bankrupting me in the process. The words hung in the air, heavy as a guillotine. Her mask cracked. Out went the helpless damsel. In came the dragon. You're really going to do this, she hissed. You're going to let your own daughter lose her home while you sit on 100 million? I love you, Kara, I said, steady as stone, but I won't enable your choices anymore. That was the match to the fuse. She sprang up, pacing like an actress mid-meltdown. Fine. But don't expect to see Jake again. Don't expect Christmas dinners or birthday calls or photos when he graduates. You'll die alone in that miserable house of yours. No family. No grandchildren at your funeral. Nothing. Classic. When emotional blackmail fails, move on to existential blackmail. If that's your choice, I said softly, I'll have to accept it. The calmness in my voice startled her. For once, my refusal wasn't bluster, it was final. She froze, searching my face like she'd stumbled into a stranger's home. You've changed, she said coldly. Money has made you cruel. No, Kara, I said. Money has made me free. She stormed out, heels hammering my walkway like a judge's gavel. Tires squealed, exhaust fumes trailing her like the stench of entitlement. I stood at the window, watching the daughter I used to cradle drive away in a rage. My heart was heavy, but my house was quiet. For the first time in years, peaceful. 3 months later, my living room was stripped bare, boxes stacked by the door. I held my phone, thumb hovering over her name. And then, without ceremony, I tapped block this number. Some bridges, once torched, aren't worth rebuilding. I loaded my car, handed the keys to the movers, and set off for Dayton. 2 hours of rolling countryside later, I wasn't the lottery winner from the news anymore. Just Stephen Woods, anonymous new resident, man who'd survived betrayal, manipulation, and family politics more vicious than Parliament. And honestly, I preferred it that way. My house sat on a quiet street, about 3 hours from Columbus, which is just far enough that anyone dropping by unannounced has clearly lost both their sat-nav and their dignity. Perfect. Henderson's classic auto restoration had been sitting on the market for months, gathering dust like an abandoned VHS player. The moment I walked through the shop with that intoxicating blend of motor oil and polish hitting my nostrils, I knew I'd found my purpose. Or at least, something better to do than staring at beige wallpaper and regretting life choices. You sure you want this much work? Asked Tom Henderson, gesturing at the graveyard of half-finished project cars in his bays. Most folks your age are thinking about slowing down. Ah yes. Retirement, society's polite way of telling you to sit quietly until you die. I ran my hand along the fender of a 1967 Mustang and said, I'm just getting started. Translation. I'd rather drop dead under a car bonnet than rot in a recliner watching daytime telly. Within a week, Henderson's became Wood's classic auto restoration. I hired 3 local mechanics, good lads, though I suspect at least one of them thought a carburetor was a salad. On the side, I set up the Single Fathers Foundation, because apparently one midlife crisis at a time isn't enough. Honestly, I just remembered my own disasters after my wife's death and thought, why not immortalize them in a charity? Evenings in Dayton were quiet. Blessedly, painfully quiet. I could walk the streets without whispered conversations about my tragic backstory, following me like unpaid bills. The local diner poured coffee without trying to pair it with unsolicited gossip. Miraculous. Settling in, are you? Asked Helen, my neighbor, turning up with homemade cookies. Very step forward of her. Neighborhood's quiet, but we look out for each other. Quiet. Exactly what I hoped for. Because nothing screams healing like a tray of biscuits from a stranger and the absence of passive-aggressive small talk. The shop became my sanctuary. A place where I could work with my hands instead of waving a checkbook around like some entitled prat. Together, the team and I restored a 1955 Chevrolet to mint condition. When the owner saw it, he burst into tears. Which, to be fair, is also my default reaction when I look at my bank statement. But I understood completely. Cars don't lie. People do. I thought about Kara sometimes. Not in the throw yourself onto the floor, melodramatic way. More in the yes, that disaster happened way. The sharp pain was gone, replaced by that dull throb you get when you've stubbed your toe months ago, but still remember the betrayal of the table leg. The money hadn't changed me. No, it just stripped away years of enabling nonsense, and revealed I'd always been, well, a sarcastic sod who actually liked fixing things. My phone rang occasionally with unknown numbers. I'd bet my last spanner it was Kara. But I let them go to voicemail, because if adulthood has taught me anything, it's that ignoring problems is sometimes the healthiest option. One Thursday evening, after completing a 1969 Camaro restoration. Yes, it was beautiful, and yes, I deserved a medal. I drove home past the community center. On the wall, a shiny plaque for my foundation read, "Supporting strong families through tough times." Which is a polite way of saying we're broke, but at least we care. I parked, looked up at the stars, and had one of those cinematic, reflective moments directors love. Somewhere, Kara was out there, living with the consequences of her choices. And me? I was busy building something meaningful, or at least convincing myself that fixing cars counted as spiritual growth. Every restored car, every grant from the foundation, was basically me shouting into the void. Character matters more than connections. And look, I've got grease under my nails to prove it. The lottery ticket that started it all now hangs framed in my office. Not as a trophy, but as a reminder that sometimes the universe hands you miracles wrapped in bin liners. And sometimes the most brutal lessons arrive dressed like gifts. So yes, my life became an odd cocktail of engine grease, charity grants, and sarcastic inner monologues. But it's mine. And if you enjoyed this emotional circus disguised as a story, go ahead, like the video, subscribe, and throw your opinions in the comments. Misery loves company, after all. And if you fancy another tale of chaos and questionable decision-making, click the box on the left. Thanks for watching. Now go on, I've got a Mustang to polish.